can't do this thing called journey of life alone. Your faith needs to be strong and rock solid for you to be able to get through this. You need some great believing men around you to encourage you, to pour into you, to pray for you.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. I'm Dr. B, your host, and it's 2025. Today is January 1, 2025. It's a time when people kind of reflect and say, I don't know if they're reflecting or they're just trying to make decisions and changes and things in their life that are different. I like to think of all the things that, if I put on this earth to do what God has asked me to do, to help people become the person they need to be in order to do the thing he put them on this earth to do, then I'm in the right spot. I'm in my purpose. I'm doing the wonderful things that, I believe he has for me. And so one of the things that has been fun is in 2024, I set out and I said, we're going to interview 100 Black men. We're going to interview 100 men that are doing something to move forward, and not only to move themselves forward, but to serve others. And throughout I didn't end up doing 105, and throughout the 105 episodes that we put together, there was just some incredible men that are turning. But there were some themes that came out. And Ahmard, you'll kind of appreciate some of the themes. One was that we need to see others who look like us in order to do some of the things that we believe we can do. It doesn't have to be exact, but it has to be like, are you in the realm of just showing me that it's possible? And there's some folks that ventured out and said, I had a guy who said, I'll make up some barbecue sauce, right? They've obviously seen somebody make some barbecue sauce. But then we saw some other people, they like, I want to fly some fighter jets or be a pilot or something like that. And I haven't seen too many people, back to the Tuskegee Airmen and that kind of stuff. So it was just amazing seeing people. Another theme was serving. And, my belief is, if you are going to be the best you can be in this world, you have to be willing to serve others. Help people find the things that they're trying to do, the problems that they need to solve, the things that and you find a niche to be able to get in there. Whether you're working with youth and you're saying, hey, you want to get better at whatever you're doing, and you become a mentor and you help out because you're willing to serve. I only had one guest throughout the whole year that said, I don't need to serve nobody. He pretty much said that I'm going to make the kind of money I make, and I want to be the most selfish man on the planet. And when people want to come to me, they can come to me, and then, we'll see about if I can help them or not. That was an interesting interview. I respected that interview and the person who said it. At the same time, I'm going, okay, I don't know if you can achieve full happiness without doing what God put you on this earth to do. And I think he put us on this earth to serve. And so today is no different. We're going to start out 2025 with a bang. We're going to start with somebody I know who loves to serve, and somebody I know who loves to make a difference in people's lives, and that's Ahmard Vital. And so, I'm going to let him tell a story just as I have done, because if you can go through these episodes and you can find somebody that has done some of the things that you've done or doing some of the things you want to do, or just gives you inspiration because you maybe came from the same background, or some of us said, we grew up with a single parent home, and there were some issues that went there. Some people said, well, I had a mom and dad, and my dad was amazing. This is what he's done. The big other third thing that is kind of a theme is what it means to be a dad. And we really explored, some of that for folks that have been a single dad or been a dad where mom didn't want the dad to see them, or dad, I messed up. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Or dad to say, hey, I've been doing it since day one. I've been hammering out. I love my kids. I love what I do. We got this beautiful. So all walks of life in that area. And so, Ahmard, I'm going to let you tell your story. We're going to find out all about you, and then we'll jump into some of our pillars and that kind of stuff. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you for taking some time out on this day. A lot of people are sitting down watching football, TV, eating great food, that kind of stuff, and you're willing to get after it and say, I want to make this life so much better and have the capacity to do it. So thank you for being on.
Well, Dr. Brian, thank you for having me. Thank you for your audience. And just looking forward to a good conversation with you today. And yes, football is on in the other room. There is barbecue from last night that are still sitting on my stove, so that will still partake for today. But when you talk about me telling my story, we our resumes are long and they have a lot of things going on them. But man, sometimes I just like to keep things simple, and I'll do that for your audience here today. Man, I'm just a young man from a small town called New Caney, Texas, here in the state of Texas, who woke up one day with a dream and a pen in his hand. At the core, I've been a writer. As my bio says, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm a fitness instructor, I'm a team ministry leader. All those things are still true, but at the core of it, it starts right here with my pen, which I believe outside of the word of God, that my pen is the greatest weapon he could have ever given me. And so at the core, writing led to me, writing my first book. First book led to the second book led to the third book. In between that, I started speaking, I started coaching, and I started, going to different corporations and different small businesses, nonprofits, and working in a lot of high schools and been overseas and different things like that. And, I now have 3 books to date. But at the end of the day, man, I'm just a young man who wants to just go out there and serve and do what's good and best, mostly for the young men of society. I believe that it's my understanding, and what I've witnessed is that society really, really has downplayed the impact of young men. And I want to not only be an advocate for them, I also want to tell them how awesome they are and how awesome they can become. Most of the times that's just not shared, especially today. They're telling everybody who's leadership that they're toxic, and you need to in touch with your feelings a little bit more. And I'm not disregarding some of those talking points or whatever, but when a young man hasn't seen the level of strong masculinity in his life and know what that means for him, and knowing that he can have that too, then when you tell someone to be less of something, they don't know how to take that. And that's why we have a male crisis and a female crisis of all youngsters at this time in our lives. And so what I want to do is step in that place as an advocate for these young men and say, you are awesome. You are a leader. In fact, there's nowhere in life you cannot be a leader. You are called to something greater. And I want to be able to reinforce that message. And I will say that will be the backdrop of where I am right now. Forget the history of where I've come and where I'm going right now. That is one of my chief focuses, and that's where I'm going to stand on today.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. I love it. Is there, when we talk about identity, and you kind of alluded to it and saying there's a crisis of, and I think one of the crises, whether it's a female or a male crisis, it is rooted in identity and who we are and who we believe we are. What are some of the things maybe in your life that kind of shaped your identity, allowed you to become the man that you are today, that the younger folks or even other folks that are maybe in the same age or even older can take as clues of how to shape that identity to allow you to succeed?
Well, first and foremost, I have 2 fathers. I have my biological father and I have the man who raised me. And to me, at this point in my life, they both have equal representation in my life. One of them died the night after my 33rd birthday, but my biological father is still here. That's the foundational pillar for me. Aside from my faith in God, which obviously came from them as men first, that is the foundational pillar. They're the ones who taught me how to work, taught me how to serve, taught me how to love, taught me how to go out and earn for yourself. And so your identity, in addition to the faith, has to come, especially as a young man, has to come from men. I know, newsflash, men empowering men. And not only do you have to have that as early on as, your childhood years, but as you get older, in addition to your father, which most good men would realize that the father alone is not enough to get you what you need to go forward through life. You need coaches, you need pastors, you need ministers, you need just different type of men from an apprentice and professional standpoint in your life who can help you understand who you are. And who you are, for one, is a child of God. And secondly, you are a leader. You are a leader of not only your life, but you will be a leader of something in your life, no matter what profession you go into. So that starts from what I like to call a community of men, starting with the father in the home, then going into pastors, to coaches, and different people in your life who you meet up with, and gravitating to those men who share a value system which was instilled from your father, and then instilling the values that you get from going to church and listening to your pastor, who hopefully is pouring into you in a proper way. And all of those things come in to shape you and to be and have the identity needed to be able to move forward and be a productive person in life, to be a moral person in life, to be a servant leader in life. And all of those things are a factor that go into identity as I see it.
So let's say you're now in your early 30s, and I'm just a hypothetical, and I didn't have those systems. I didn't have a man around the house. I didn't have what I call great examples of morals and values and those systems. But there's something in me. Maybe I'm starting to get into church and starting to find some other men. What do I do to take what I've learned growing up, because it is what it is. I can't change that. But to develop, how do I get around those right circles of men? How do I seek those people out? Where do I find that? Where do I now begin to change through, maybe it's association or other things? What would be your suggestions there for these young men who are saying, well, I didn't have that. So am I doomed? Can I change? Can I move? What's that like?
Well, if we're talking about post high school and post college, obviously now you're in that early adulthood stage. And I think you said late 20s, early 30s, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So at that point in time, obviously now you are in control of your life. And I would say the first place you need to go is to get you a community of like-minded, strong Christian men in your life. Join a church and get involved in the ministry there. Lean in on your pastor, be a disciple for someone, and just get involved and get conversations with men in the church, guys who you've recognized, family men, married men with children, and who can guide you and usher you through this journey of life. Now, I'm assuming if you're at this point and you're still seeking, that all those developmental years, maybe or maybe not, you maybe had a coach or a teacher or somebody who was involved in your life. Let's just say that you didn't get any of that. So hopefully, if you're not too, if your mind has not been beaten and battered too much by being told certain things, that would be where I would start. I would start there. I would start professionally. I would network with whatever the industry you're in. Find the power players, the men of those industries, and sit down and take them out to lunch. Have a cup of coffee with them, and start looking at examples of men, professional men, Christian men, very moral and religious men, and see what qualities they have, and see if that's something that you want in your life. Because most men who have those qualities are more than likely open to sitting down and having a conversation with you. They may even go a step further. And if you go to them, like I've done recently in my life, and saying, hey, there's some new changes I want to make in my life. I would like to bring you on and be your disciple, or to be a mentor and allow you to pour into me. You let me know what that looks like, what the terms are, and you honor, and that person will support you, and you honor them in the role that they're playing in your life. We have to seek what we need in life. Remember, we're not born built with everything we need. We become. We have to grow. We have to go through those pains. We have to go through those trials. We have to maybe break a couple of ankles. We have to, take some losses, maybe end up, losing a great deal of money, sometimes losing our mind along the way. All of that is part of the process and is needed for you to get where you need to go. But find a community of men who are moving in the way where you would like to see. They have some things you want to have. They think in a way that you would like to think. Bring them on, embrace them, and follow and honor them and submit to them, so that they can give you what is needed for you to live a great, awesome, and productive life.
Man, I love that. Now, I know you talked about writing some books, mm-hmm. and the power of the pen and the power of I guess first question would be, what inspired you to write these books? And then after writing them, what message are you trying to reach your audience with, as far as who you would want them to become, or what you'd want them to get out of some of the writings? I mean, I've written a couple books now, and I have a definite message that says this is what I would love for you to get out, but at the same time, there's some hidden message in there. This is what I really want you to get out of the book, right? After you read the words, what's that like for you?
For me, there's obviously, there's books I write that are motivational, some that I write that's inspirational, some that are strategic. But at the end of the day, For me, the three words I live by is service, gratitude, and impact.
Okay.
And for me, every action I take every day needs to include those three things. If not, then I need to question what it is I'm doing.
Okay.
Right? Because if one aspect of that is not coming together, then for me, I have to ask myself, am I being productive in the way that I'm called to be? So most of my books, especially my latest one, Now What? 5 Steps to Get Up and Create the Most of Life, I look through 5 steps to get yourself from one area of your life into a new arena of life. And so this is for people who are making major transitions. Maybe you want to go back to college. Maybe you want to change careers. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to, you've been dealing with some legal issues. And so you maybe you came away from your legal issues or came away from a court issue or some level of things like that, and you're looking to jump into a new area of life. Well, there's steps you need to go through to do that, right? For one, you need to reflect. That would be point one. You need to reflect. How did we get here? You're looking around, wondering, hey, this is not so awesome, but maybe you came out of a crisis. Now, the one thing you need to do is reflect, not only how we got there, but it's like, what's the first step to getting out of this? That's number one. Number two, you have to decide, okay, maybe I've made some mistakes. Things didn't work out. I'm bankrupt. And maybe I'm in a little down state of my life. Well, what do you want? If life was awesome, what would you be doing? Right? What does that look like for you? And so at that point, you decide. And the third step we do is we plan. Okay, we reflected, we're here, we accept it, we own up to it. We decide, hey, this is where we want to go. We want to move in a different way. Now we plan it and say, okay, here's what I want to do. What's the steps to get there? And what is the methodology to where every day I can move towards this goal, right? This is where your mind maps come out. This is where your goal setting comes together. This is where, let's say you want to choose to be a mechanic. Okay, let's reverse engineer this. Let's work in reverse. What do you need to be able to become a mechanic? Is there some skills you need? Is there some training you need? Is there job listings? Is it available in the area where you are? What's the amount of money I'll need for the schooling or for the training or whatever goes along with it? Are there any awesome mechanics in the area who will allow me to be their apprentice and be able to work under them? All of these things go on in the planning stage. And once you put all the plans together, then now it's like time to take legitimate action, meaning now we're actually doing it. You're getting in the game and maybe you're on site, you're doing the training, you're doing the mentoring, you're doing all of the different things, you're learning the craft, right? And so that's our action stage. And the last and one of the most important things is to seek. You just asked about, a young man looking to find men in his life to be able to help him get through this new time. Okay, seek. What do you need? Right? Do you need a mentor? You need a patriarch? You need, your father? Like what do you need someone to help you get the financing together? Do you need someone to encourage you? Do you need someone to pray for you? All of those things. You start seeking your council of people who's going to be on your personal board of directors. Who do you need? Like right now, I have 3 to 5 guys on my team right now who help me in different areas of my life. This one helps me read the Bible. This one helps me serve and go out and do the mission. This one teaches me things in marketing. This one teaches me how to do things in business. And then I just got an overall person who's just a moral man who I can go to and say, hey, I got this situation. What do I do with this? I want to make sure I'm looking at this in the right way. Wise, moral men will be like, hey, I will suggest you do things this way because you want to make sure everyone comes away with a fair deal in all of what you're doing. And so you need this counsel, this community. I'm going to continue saying this, a community of men around you to be able to help you and usher you through this journey called life, because we don't do this alone and we're not meant to do this alone. But in wrapping up the now what strategic policies, we reflect, we decide, we plan, we act, and we seek what we need in life. And that's going to get us into a new era to where we can do and move some different things.
Well, I love it. I'm thinking about the action. I'm thinking about when I got up this morning, right? And did I go through some of those 5 steps? And, when I got up this morning and I knew that I wanted to go on my normal 3-mile walk, and then I looked at my phone and it said that it was, 11 degrees outside. And so, I live here in Denver and I'm like, okay, so can I visualize my walk? And so I said, maybe I can think about all the things that my walk would look like and realize that no, I can't visualize a walk. I got to get up and do it. And so I made that decision, right? And then, then I went and took action, right? I can see how, doing these things or finding out what to do. My second book is called The Decision Formula, right? Making decisions that'll change your life. And part of that is the journey. And then what are those disciplines that go on that you have to do in order to make the thing happen? First, you're making it, you go, okay. And then, looking at the cost, what is it going to cost me? What am I going to have to give up? For me, I had to give up being in this nice warm bed on New Year's Day that said, this would be much better to stay here for another hour than it would to be go out 11-degree weather, where it just lightly snowed. But then part of the journey was so cool because I think I'd made one of my shorts when I was on there. I'm walking down this fresh snow and I'm the only one who's been on it. And there's nobody out there that's in sight. So I'm saying I'm doing something that nobody else is willing to do right now. So what's that going to do for me later on when I'm thinking about if I'm willing to do what others aren't willing to do, does that mean I get to have what others don't get to have? Or does it just mean? And then I came around a corner and there was some footsteps and they were going the wrong, they were going from the direction. I'm like, okay, somebody's been out here before me. And then my mind went to, well, I guess they're going in the wrong direction because I'm going in the right direction. Now, both of them out there were exercises, probably where we came from. But that was how my mind went to, okay, God, what do you have for me today that is in the right direction and getting closer to you and helping others? And so I love, the system of your books and the things that you're at. How do you say you want us to get around a circle of men and a circle or group, and we seeked out that group. How do we make sure that those are the right men that are going to help us move forward? How do we trust? Because trust is one of those big words that I think sometimes we take for granted because not all of us just trust everybody we came around. And maybe not all of us should. And all of us that had different experiences in our life has taught us this is the type of person you trust, or this isn't the type of person you shouldn't trust, or walk slowly, or jump in and take risks. I mean, we hear all these words. How in your world of seeking that you have as part of your book that you work through this thing called trust?
The way I see it is when it comes to trust, notice the places where I said to go seek out these men at church, within a work setting, community service, things. You want to go places where you get to see people as much as possible in what I like to call a natural habitat, meaning they've probably been at church with you and you've maybe, let's say you've been at the church for a month and you maybe see them every Sunday and Wednesday and maybe a few other times. And so you get to see them interact with others outside of you. And so you get to watch them and see them interact. Let's just say they're married. How are they interacting with their wife, with their children? What signs are we seeing to show how this man moves and operates? And so we have to have our meter wide open to vet these men when we're choosing who's going to be our mentors and who's going to be some consultants in our lives. And that starts with just, hey man, doing some recon, seeing how they operate. When you have a conversation with them, see where their heart is when they speak to you. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. We can tell when somebody is, moving in a direction in the way they speak. We can just see how they interact with other pastors, with other people, with their colleagues, with other women, with other children. And so we just need to just be very mindful of how we see people when there's not a reason to put on a show, if that makes sense. When we can just see them doing what they do, when there's no reason to sort of show out, and you can really just see the natural flow of them. Like most people who are around me for more than 5 seconds, they know that I'm a pretty aggressive guy. I have a very strong tone. I come right off and just say what needs to be said. It may come off a little bit with some heat, but that's me. It's not because I have any issue with you. It's because I'm excited. I'm passionate. I'm grateful God gave me another day to live life. And so I come off with a little bit of excitement, a little bit of aggressiveness. And so that's something that I don't typically code switch with, whether I'm talking to a child, whether I'm talking to a teenager, or whether I'm talking to an adult, I'm talking to a colleague. I'm not disrespectful with it, but I'm very direct in what I say. And I like to make sure and stay consistent in that way, and be and saying things in a loving way. So when you're seeking that, seek the qualities you're looking for. Maybe somebody with that type of personality is not your thing. That's fine. They can still be a good person, and they just might not be the right person for you. And so when we're vetting, vet for that which you need in your life, not for what makes you feel good, but for what you need, right? Because the guy who might be for what you need, personality wise, they may be a little bit in a direction that's not quite in alignment with what yours is. But if they bring you the wisdom that's needed and they provide the love and the morality that's needed in your life, hey, you need to take that chance. And so I think that'll be a couple of great ways to vet guys who you're looking for to lead you.
I really appreciate you saying that, because if all these conversations, you might be one or two people who said observe. And it's one thing to listen to the words that somebody says and try to figure out whether you can trust them or not. And some people want you to trust them within the first 10, 20, 30 seconds that they're there, or they start telling you stuff like maybe they're a salesman and they're trying to sell you something, and you're trying to figure out whether it's, is this a yes or this is a no, or should I follow or should I go down? Well, if you don't know the character of the person and you haven't watched them, and see how they interact with others, it's really hard to make that decision and to take the time out and believe that although time is this thing we don't get back, it's that's the exact answer to the question. Yes, if you make that decision and you don't get that time back, because now you go spend another 3, 4, 5 months with that person and realize, wait a minute, this isn't who I should have been with. Now you spend way more time than it would in the beginning to just say, let me observe. And you're not going to tell, I'm going to watch you to see what you do. That's just silly. But to really watch, to pay attention. Watch how I love. How do you interact with women, or how do you interact with your kids? How do you interact if they have them? How do you interact with the people that you see them come across? I guess sometimes that's hard to do, especially if you meet somebody like us online, right? We don't get the opportunity to do that so much. But before you decide to go into business with somebody, before you decide to trust them with your kids, before you decide to trust them with telling you and leading you down a path as a mentor, what a great idea to kind of watch. Hey, let me sit down in one of your coaching sessions that you do, or whatever it is. If you're trying to hire somebody as a coach or something like that. I think that is some very wonderful, wonderful advice that you can put in there. You talked about being a coach and being, helping people out physically and that kind of stuff. And I know mental health for us is one of those things. Well, mental and physical health. If they say the average Black man lives to be 72, what do we do to make sure that we stay alive, that we are taking care of our bodies, that we're, when we're so scared to go to the doctor, right? Because we don't trust the doctor, right? I guess you could sit up in the waiting room and kind of, observe or something, or follow them home. But at the same time, how do we make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, our health, and then maybe talk about mental health as well? Because I think those go hand in hand. And somehow we try to separate as if we're not going through stuff, or we don't need anybody, or we can't seek out help or advice from other people who might be able to help us.
You're absolutely correct. And we need a total rinse, wash, repeat, and a renaissance in that way. For one, it's been way too much bad information that has been swirling around, and there's nothing tough about not going to the doctor. So we can just get over that now. For any of the men out there who are listening to me right now, your yearly, and I'm actually calling myself out because I've missed mine for a year or two. Your yearly checkup where they check everything, your vitals, your blood, your urine, your prostate, your EKG with your heart. You need to get that done, right? Because that number of 72 is extremely low. And I think that just has to do with a lot of bad habits and unlearning some things that are just not beneficial to us, right? If you're, I know that we like to say that BMI is standards that don't apply to us. That's nonsense, right? We got to get over this overweight and this obese mentality that we have right now, and saying that, it's sexy and it's thick and it's this and that. That's nonsense, right? We need to be of a nice fit age and BMI and weight according to our height. right? We need to stop overeating. We need to get in the gym. Yes, and I'm not talking about going to the gym for like 1 or 2 hours a week. I'm talking about the fact that men, we need to be in the gym anywhere from 3.5 to 5 hours or more per week. We need to get our 11, 12, 13 glasses, 13 servings of water in a day and flush our bodies out. Physical health does correlate over to mental health, because guess what? When you're fat and overweight and you're moving sluggish, you don't have the vitality needed, which takes down your mental because you're disgruntled because you can't get a lot of stuff done and you're falling asleep. And as for the mental health, for one, I've said it many times, get around a great community of men, preferably starting in the church, because guess what? You can't do this thing called journey of life alone. And your faith needs to be strong and been rock solid for you to be able to get through this thing, right? You need some great believing men around you to encourage you, to pour into you, to pray for you. That all ties in to the mental health. Yes, we will all have stress. Yes, we will all have struggles. Yes, we may be giving over some debts or some trauma from your childhood. But here's the deal. I empathize that you dealt with a terrible childhood, and maybe some of you came from some parents who were absolutely horrible, but you are a man. You are a leader, and it is your responsibility to fix your life. You don't get the option to go blaming everybody else for where you are once you cross over the age between probably 18 and 22. You are a full-fledged adult. I, again, empathize that you had parents who maybe did not look after you and care for you in a proper way. They will be dealt with properly in another way. That is not for you to deal with. But your life is your responsibility, meaning if you have to go see a psychiatrist, if you need to go see a psychologist, if you need a pastor or a mentor, a life coach, whatever that may be, you need to go get that. Because again, we're not meant to live life alone, and we cannot always try to just simply figure it out. There's things that are just well beyond your understanding. And so we need to seek out the help of other men to help us through this journey. And when it comes to the mental health, get over the vulnerability and have some humility and understand that it's okay to need help. I'm so grateful at this point in my life. I just recently turned 46 years old. And I have the greatest collection of men around me that I've ever had in my life. I can go to them. I can walk into my church right now and say, guys, I am broken. I need support. I need some pouring into. I need intercession right now. And I can have 10 to 20 hands laid on me in that amount of time. I need guys who are dealing with mental health to have that type of community around them. This is not something, this is a suggestion. This is a requirement. You try to go through this journey called life alone. You try to say this is all about me. It's not. It never has been. Because the dirty little secret that no one will tell you is leadership is not about being at the top. It's about serving what would be called the lesser of these. You are supposed to be lesser to serve the needs of those who are calling on you to make their lives better. Not you, their lives better.
Yes, yes.
And that is where we get things so twisted. This journey called life is not about you. And I think once we get out of some of the self-serving, some of the narcissism, some of the arrogance, all of those things, I think our mental health will improve.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to improve your mental health? I'll challenge the fellas out there. You want to improve your mental health? Invest 2 hours a week to go serve somebody else.
Ooh.
Goodwill, Salvation Army, your church, your local schools, the soup kitchen, any of those places. Go feed the homeless, right? Go do that for a couple of years. And if you come away from that still feeling a certain type of way and don't feel a level of gratitude that even if you live in a 410 square foot efficiency apartment, that you are doing better than 97% of the world, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And when I think of that, how much we're at the beginning of the year and people are making all these resolutions and all the things that they're going to do. And one of them has to be deciding how much you're going to spend, whether it's time or it's money, on you improving you. If you're that guy who says, I got this, I don't need anybody, everything I do, I can do by myself, and I'm going to have to do it myself because nobody's been there for me before. I'm not expecting nobody to be there for. That's a form of mental health that needs to be fixed, that needs to be helped, And as I think about it, we all need other people. We all need a group of people around us. And if we're not going to spend that money on us, we'll spend more on rims, on cars, on clothes, on shoes. I walk into people's, house and they got, 50 pairs of Jordans, different, whatever. I don't even know how many years of Jordans there's been there, right? But they're struggling to feed their family. They're struggling to, those are all things you go, wait a minute. Who is helping you make these decisions in life? And I hope that all of us will be willing this year to spend some time working on what we call personal development, working on us, the amount of personal development you're willing to do for just what you said, so I can go serve others. And then you find that gratitude, right? I think that's the biggest component of what you just said is that gratitude that you get from service and the things that you're able to do. So I appreciate you sharing that. Finances, because everybody that so far this year that's contacted me is talking about money, and whether money is plentiful or money is not enough, on just ideas on, what do we do with this thing? Because that's another thing as Black men, right? We never talk about money. We figure we got it all together. You do, right? Like, you can have the guy looking the sharpest as could be, go home and he's eating out of a can of beans, because he's not functioning and he's not willing to say, I don't get this. I know I haven't seen it done right. I haven't heard it done right. And I don't get this. What do I need to do? What's your suggestions on just understanding money and then doing some good things with it?
First and foremost, and me and a colleague of mine was talking about this recently.
Okay.
When men are not able to provide, it's hard to keep your mental health in check.
Yes,
when you feel like you're falling short in the provision category, because we're built to do that, to provide. Even if you're in a home just by yourself, when you are not providing at a level that you feel is sufficient, or even just the bottom floor of just basic necessities, it does something to you. And so what I want us to do is I want us to start with a stronger money mindset. And that starts in understanding how money is created. It is created by serving the greatest number of people with what they need. And in part, you get a percentage of that back, right? And I talked to so many guys who were just like, man, I'm not making enough at my job. And I'm just like, well, what are you doing? It's like, I'm doing my job. I was like, yeah, that's not enough.
Yeah, it's not.
If you're getting paid what you're paid to do, then you're getting paid for what you've done. You get increase when you create increased opportunities by providing more service to your employer. See, we've had this so backwards for so long. It's like, I need to be making more because I showed up. And then you feel some type of way when they let you go. Why? Because I was taught early on, and my father used to always tell me to make sure, to the whole over deliver thing. But I actually took it to another level. And over time, I've always said, because I've never actually been quote unquote laid off ever in my life. Because my mindset when I go into work, it says, okay, let's just say we're downtrodden. And mind you, I joined my company in the middle of the housing crisis back in 2008, which was rough for a lot of people. It was a lot of downsizing going on. But the mindset I went into work from day one was, if they let me go, they need 3 people to replace me. That's the mindset I go into the game of life with. Meaning, when they're letting people go, they're going to be like, yeah, well, what are we going to do about Ahmard? Well, he does produce. He produces a lot of results for us. When you think at that level, things just change. And with that, obviously, that'll keep you employed. So now what do we do with the money when we get there? For one, the greatest way to build wealth is to, number one, spend less than you make. I know that's such a simple elementary concept.
Oh gosh, yes.
Spend less than you make.
Yeah.
If you make 100 and you spend 80, you're plus 20 in the category, right? If you make 200 and you spend 250, you are broke.
Yeah.
Not my opinion, that just is. But you was taught that credit card is just an ATM that you can pay back whenever you want to. And that's the quickest way to lose money in that way. For my guys out there who maybe you're not making quite as much as you can, I challenge you to this. For one, not only do you need to make a budget, but going out to eat needs to stop for the next 3 to 6 months.
Quickest way to start making some money back.
It's the biggest expense on most people's thing is food.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you guys who maybe don't know how to cook, sandwiches are easy. And they have a lot of meals that are not very hard to make. You can Google this, you Google everything else. But I want you to go through a cycle to where not only are you making all your meals at home, I want you to start packing your lunch. Because I can assure you, if you do the numbers, you will save anywhere from $60 to $115 to $120 per week by doing this. I've tested it because I've been broke 4 to 6 times in my life. And trust me, I know what it's like to have $8.27 left in your account after expenses. And so with that, set your budget, see how much you need, go over with it at no point. When you get a raise, don't change your style of living. Stay where you are. If you're making $32,000 right now and you get a raise to $35,000, don't raise your income, your expenses by the $3,000. Take what's left after taxes from the $3,000 and save it. And then when you get the second raise, you do it again. Maybe by your third one, you might be able to add $150 to your budget. But we're taught just to live, but not to be wealthy. We're taught just to make, how many times do you hear these old shows? Oh, I'm just trying to make it. Why?
Yeah.
God didn't send you here to just make enough to pay bills. You're supposed to have life and have life more abundantly. So why are we trying to just get by? Where does that work?
Yeah.
So meaning that every month you're worried about not getting a flat tire because you won't have the money for it. Why don't we actually get to a point where we're talking about a surplus? I'm gonna pierce the side of a couple of you to where we can get to the point when one of our family members passes, we don't have the family meeting to pass money around the house to find out how we're going to bury our loved ones.
Yes.
Yes, you all know exactly what I'm talking about because in my family we've done it many times over, and you know what? It's sickening, and we need to get out of that. So this next generation, the Gen X, the Gen Z, the millennials, the next generations, we need to have a wealth mindset, and that starts with being around people who have wealth and they can teach you about wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Start learning what money is about. Look at a dollar, break it down by 10 dimes, and decide what needs to happen with it.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a formula to do with what to do with a dollar. The first dime goes to giving to your local church, your nonprofit, or wherever you serve. That's off the top. And I'm not talking about your take-home pay. I'm talking about the pay before the taxes come out. I know a lot of people like to do it from after that, but the true trust comes when you do it off the top.
Off the gross. Yep.
Off the gross. Trust. If you believe, you will be blessed. The second one is for you to go long-term, meaning that emergency fund, that in case your tire does blow, it's available. to pay cash for, not to put on the discount tire credit card. Okay. Third, it's kind of your short term, like your wants and your needs, right? You have a short term and a long term savings account. One takes care of a couple of little things here and there, and the other one is set it over there to the side. And you can decide what to do with the fourth dime. Maybe you're talking about a 401k, or whatever stage you are in life, whether you're talking about a Roth or whatever those look like for you. But the bottom line is save some money. Save some money. Whether it's 10% after you pay your tithes, or it's 20, or whatever that looks like. Just know that when something happens, you can just look over there and say, oh, I'm able to go pay for that and just go take care of it. When we can get into that mindset, and that's why I'm giving this very elementary right now. It goes much deeper. I can go 5 steps on the dimes and what to do with them. Because technically, you only need to live on about 60 to 70% of your total take-home pay. That's the truth.
You should. Absolutely.
You should. Yes. You're not supposed to be broke, right? I know Good Times and all these shows have told you all that being like there's a it's kind of like when you hear the lady say, like, I'm a proud single mom. That's not something to be proud of. I'm sorry, it's not. Now, if it happened, it's unfortunate, and we need to look at it that way. But that's not like a yes, that's what we want. No, that's the problem. We don't need more of that. And that's another conversation for another day, Dr. Brian. But at the same time, that is all the stuff we've talked about has contributed to the fact that the family unit has been dismantled.
Yes.
And destroyed systematically at every level. And so those are the simple truths on how to keep the money. I would think that those simple steps: save, spend less than you make, and create a budget.
Oh my gosh. There's so much to unpack in there. When I think of our relationship with money and the things that we have and some things that you said, I think of why is it that we don't have enough? Because we have this lack mentality, as if we're supposed to always be in lack. And God is a God of abundance. And to think that we should be living in this world where we lack all the time because we don't understand and we're not willing to. And then we go to work, like you said, and we act as if the employer owes us extra money. Like if I show up today, and I've heard this so many times for somebody to say, well, he's got plenty of money. He's making enough money. He can afford to pay us more. But he didn't hire you to pay you more, right? He hired you to say, this is what I'm doing to create wealth for my family. And he said, this is what I'm willing to pay for this job that you're doing. And so that's what I'm going to pay you. And then you go, well, he should pay me more. Why? What gives us the right to say that this person owes us more money for doing the job that he hired us to do without saying, okay, what am I going to do? If I don't like that, then I should go do something else, right? Because I have this ability to go do more. Now, and I'm not talking about when there's somebody's discriminating and somebody's, now he's paying one other guy because, there's a whole lot of issues that go into that. But I'm just saying the basics of what our belief system is as if the world owes us because we were born. And then we walk away thinking that that's all we have to do. And you're saying, no, I got to go do this that we're doing. I want to talk about, what we have in relationships. How do we get the best out of the relationships, whether it's with our kids or with our spouses, and how we show up? Are we supposed to, like we show up thinking about money? Do we show up in the relationship going, okay, this is what you got to do for me? I have a show that I'd love to invite you for on Sunday nights. If you can come on, that would be great. But it's called Why Love Waits. And we're talking about, the statistic that really got to me was 50% of Black women over the age of 40 have never been married. And 75% of them have kids. And so we're trying to figure out what is going on. Well, I don't need a man, or, I'm proud to be a single parent, like you just said, a single mom. How do we create relationship that this isn't continuing to happen? Because in the 50s, it wasn't that way. It was less than 20% of Black women were not married over 40. Now we're at 50% and it's growing. And we get these complaints that it's too hard. Well, it is, because that's not how God meant it for it to be. But I want to hear from you on relationships. How do we foster incredible relationships?
Oh man, that's a whew, that's a
I know we're not going to do it in 5 minutes, so maybe we can start the conversation.
That's a heavy one, because I mean, there's so many factors that got us where we are. You go back to the '60s when, the entitlement programs came in, and all of those things. That was sort of the start. And then, you're talking about second and third wave feminism. You're talking about the birth control pill. You're talking about so many things. You're talking about Planned Parenthood. You're talking about a bunch of things that just really just threw a wrecking ball to us. And it's affected all the groups, but it's affected us more than ever. And I think once that removal of the man from the household,
yes,
yes, I think what ended up happening is that put a total reversal on everything that we built, that got us through Jim Crow, got us through Reconstruction, got us through everything. Remember, we stayed married at what, like an 85% clip, when it was, far worse. But think about that. All those years of all that went on, and one bill passed by LBJ can dismantle what hundreds of years couldn't. And when you think about it from that standpoint, I think what's going to have to happen, and this is not going to be a popular take, but we got to get to the young ladies. We got to get to the girls who are preteens, right? Got to get to the teenagers, and unfortunately say, hey, you don't want to be like all your aunts and your cousins, who, when we go to the family reunion, there's 12 men and there's 47 babies and 20 women. Like, we don't need to see that anymore. Like, because what ends up happening is that you end up raising the very men who are the ones you are making these children by, who are not going to stay around. I hope I'm not stepping on any toes right now, and I kind of hope I am, because that's where we are, right? You just said the marriage rate is this, but the kids are still there. Yes. So why are we continuing this practice at this level, right? And it's like, well, I didn't know he was this and that. And it's just like, really? You meet a guy, he's already got 3 other ones, and you think, hey, I'm the 4th, so it's going to work out here? Like, what? It's like, they talk a lot about women's intuition, and I'm just like, how does it not work when choosing a mate to procreate with?
Yes, oh God.
Like, seriously, like, it's like, hey, women got all this discernment or whatever, except in the most important part of life. Got it. And Dr. Brian, it's going to have to be some really hard years and some really tough conversations, because there are good men out there, but the good men are not trying to hear about how bad our other brethren and our colleagues are. And there are a lot of good guys out there, but it's like a lot of these guys don't want to show up and be like, okay, there's 3 kids from 2 dads. It's like, why do I want to invest a certain level of resources into the situation when there's, yes, it's good for you, but what is my fellow brethren who worked his way through, college, worked his way up the corporate ladder and the food chain, and it's like, he wants his family. He wants a family who's his. And so that unit and setup is not beneficial for that man. And I know the ladies don't like to hear that. It's like, my kids are an asset. Yes, to you. And no one's saying that the guys are saying that they don't have value, but we're talking about taking in, you're going from a family of 1 to a family of 4, just like that. Right? That takes resources, that takes understanding, not to mention it takes a level of leadership and authority that is almost not even attainable. And so we almost have to just start over with this thing, doctor. We really do. I don't think there's an answer to fixing, like you said, especially if we're talking about over 40 and they're still school-age kids, elementary-age kids. Like, that's a tough situation for a man to walk into, unless we're talking about a blended family. Unless we're talking about he's got a couple, you got a couple, And, we kind of go from there. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a very complex and nuanced conversation, but we're going to have some very charged conversations on how to fix this, because there's not a simple answer. And there's going to be some serious come to Jesus moments of what's reality with this. And that's about as good as answer I can give for that, because that's not only a podcast, that's a podcast series of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. I want to put a pin in that, and hopefully you'll be able to come with us on one of these Sunday nights. I'm doing every Sunday night. It would be 6 Central Time, 5 our time. We're doing it live. And so we're bringing, we have a panel of people. We have some, women that are on there that are telling us how they were brought up. And then we have some men on there, and some of the men that I've had on there, they're interesting as well, because they're talking about training their women. And, having them do stuff, be like, oh my gosh, where you come from? So I'd love for you to come on that if you're available. One of the things that now I would love to do is, we've talked about a lot, and this has been so fun to do. But I want to hear from you as to what we didn't talk about that you want to make sure this audience gets at this time. And then, beyond, when maybe we can get together and do some other stuff. But I don't want to leave without you being able to express the best of what you would like to express. So it's your floor.
Dr. Brian, I thank you for your questions. They're very pointed, direct, and we addressed a lot of things. And if we could just wrap all of this up, it's like, invest in a community of yours, lean on faith in so many different ways. Look out for your family, however it's constructed. Just make sure that you check in on them. There's been some rough years we've had recently, and I know a lot of you are probably looking at your pocketbook saying, where did all the money go? And now it is time to sort of reevaluate life. I like to call it personal inventory, meaning like your thoughts, people, things, events. Where are you spending most of your time? And is it beneficial to you? Let's learn some humility. Let's embrace servant leadership, the idea of serving others and leading in that way and doing for them. And really, aside from that, just making sure we take care of ourselves, take care of our people, love more, less aggression, less strife between one another. And let's get back to a place where we can just sit down and have a conversation. You and I have had this conversation here this evening. Have more conversations that maybe are not exactly comfortable, but needed. Mm-hmm. That last question you asked is not easy to speak to the ladies out there who, maybe are in that situation and looking for a good man, for the guy who's looking for a beautiful woman to start life with. It's tough for him maybe to go into that situation. These conversations aren't easy, but we have to have them. Yes, and we're not going to move forward without, addressing that elephant in the room. And we didn't just get here like yesterday. This has been going on for almost 40 years. Yeah. And so let's have the conversation. Let's love one another, serve one another, and maybe, just maybe, we can find out a few solutions and hope that we can change a lot of these trends by the end of our lifetime, because it is going to take quite a while to be able to undo some of the things that were done. But love more, serve more, and live with a state of gratitude. And I think that'll be a good pin to put on the board.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. If people have been inspired and blessed by what we've talked about today, and they want to get a hold of you, is there a way that you have a website or something that they can go to check you out and call you to, just get more? The men are saying, hey, I really need this mentorship. I need a circle of friends. I really don't know how to do it. How would they do that?
AhmardVital.com is the hub to find me for everything. Instagram is at Ahmard Vital, Facebook, all the places where I am. It's basically just my name, AhmardVital. And they can come check in with me, come see what we have going on. We have opportunities for some coaching and things of that nature. I have some consults that I typically do complimentary, especially for the young men who are out there who are struggling right now. So if you have a young man in your life who is struggling, please just use the Journey to Freedom podcast in the subject line, and give me the name, give me 2 to 3 sentences about what's going on with the young man, and we'll see. We'll sit down and have a session with him, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and see if we can at least get him on a pathway that's going to move him forward productively. We need more productive men in society right now. I always have faith in the young men to be able to do great and amazing things, and I'm confident that we'll be able to get there. But it's going to start with men investing in other men for that to be able to happen.
And thank you. Hey, well, you've seen another just incredible episode of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And again, Dr. B, your host, and just go ahead and hit the subscribe, go ahead and hit the notifications, whatever it is, because I promise you, if you're watching these, you're going to find one of these men, one of these interviews, one of these episodes that's going to touch your heart, that's going to help you become the person that you need to be, so you can do what God put you on this earth to do. I want you not to forget that you are God's greatest gift, and he loves you if you allow him to. And we can't wait to see you on the next one. Ahmard, hang on real quick right after this, and we will talk with you on the next one. See you guys soon.